So, I hear you're stuck in a bad situation because of some old fertility treatments. My ex-husband sneered at me. We had unexpectedly run into each other in a famous wine country. He had a sarcastic smile on his face. It's pathetic, really. All that effort for nothing, he mocked. After our divorce, he had remarried, had children, and thought he was living a perfect life, feeling superior to me. And whose story might that be? I replied, patting my slightly swollen belly. I wonder who really needs fertility treatments. Little did he know he was about to discover a shocking truth. No matter how much he complained or tried to cling to me, it was too late for regrets. His false happiness was about to crumble. Our encounter would sharply show the differences in our futures. My name is Mary. I work at a travel agency, helping customers plan trips. I find great fulfillment in my work. I married Stephen after we met at work. He joined my branch as the new manager. He was calm and always kind to me. During busy seasons like summer, we often worked late together. We enjoyed fun conversations and supported each other through tough times. Over time, we grew closer and started dating, which led to marriage. After we got married, I was transferred to another branch. Working at a travel agency meant lots of overtime, and it was tough. My husband said, "You've worked hard without complaint. Once we're married, it's okay to relax a bit and be a homemaker." His concern made me very happy. However, I found my work rewarding and had a dream I wanted to achieve. I had saved money for this dream and decided to keep working even after marriage. My husband respected my decision, so we both continued working at different branches, understanding and supporting each other's work. We came home every evening to comfort and toast each other, enjoying simple happiness. 2 years into our marriage, I started to feel anxious because we still hadn't had a baby. As an only child who lost my parents when I was a student, I often felt lonely. I dreamed of having a big family and wanted at least 2 kids after getting married. "There's no need to rush. They will come when the time's right," my husband said, understanding my feelings and agreeing to start a family. "I wonder if I might be infertile. Maybe I should get checked out at the hospital," I said, feeling downhearted. "Don't be so hard on yourself. Everything's going to be okay. But if it will ease your mind, go ahead and see the doctor," my husband said, gently stroking my hair. His understanding and kindness touched me deeply. I started visiting the OBGYN and went through several tests. After many tests, they didn't find anything wrong with me. "That's great news. There's nothing wrong," my husband said happily, looking at the test results. "See, there's no need to worry. The baby will come when it's ready." His kind smile always comforted me. Next, it was time for him to get tested. "It's a short procedure, so maybe you could fit it in during a work break," I suggested, confident he would agree. "Why should I get tested? Infertility is usually a woman's issue, and it's pointless for me to do it," he said. My husband's response caught me off guard. "It might seem pointless, but just as a precaution. Besides, if it's an issue on the man's side, there are treatments available. Won't you consider it?" I said. I could see my husband's expression darken. I understood his reluctance. If there was a problem, it could hurt his pride. It was a sensitive issue, and I knew pushing him wouldn't be right. "There's no rush. When you have the time," I added, but my husband remained silent. The day ended without another word on the subject. One day, we went to visit my husband's family home for his mother's birthday. We brought her a bouquet and a gift. When my husband was a child, his father had an affair and then disappeared. Since then, his mother had to raise him by herself. I knew she had gone through a lot of hardships. She turned 65 this year and finally retired after years of hard work, never skimping on raising her children. I'd always respected my mother-in-law for raising my husband on her own. I hoped she could now spend her days happily and at ease. Thinking this, I opened the front door of her house, confident she would love the bouquet and gift we brought. "Well, hello there," she greeted us with a bright smile. "Oh, what beautiful flowers! And this bath set. I'm so touched she remembered how much I love my baths." Just as I thought, she was delighted. It should have been a pleasant time for the 3 of us, but then she said, "I'm happy about the gifts and flowers, but I'm starting to look forward to seeing a grandchild's face." The mood changed instantly. I was at a loss for words and glanced at my husband, but he stayed silent. "Mary, I understand you're busy with work, but there are more important things than work, aren't there? You need to face your own health and think about starting a family. There are fertility treatments available nowadays." "I have faced my health issues. I've been tested, and there was no problem found," I replied. "I'd want to hold a dear grandchild in these arms soon, Mary. I'm waiting, you know," she said. Why is it always assumed that the woman is to blame for infertility? Why is nothing ever said to my husband? I couldn't argue. I was afraid it would cause a rift between us. I wished my husband would speak up and explain, but he remained silent. It felt like the blame for not having children was being put entirely on me. I'm expecting to hear the good news of a baby on the way by my next birthday, she added. Her words weighed heavily on me. Being given a deadline just made me more anxious. I kept telling myself not to worry, but my mother-in-law's words echoed in my head constantly. I couldn't remember a thing from the conversation that followed. As evening fell, we left my in-laws' place. My husband and I walked home in silence, shoulder to shoulder. The setting sun cast our long shadows on the sidewalk, and I kept my eyes on them the whole way. My husband's shadow marched straight ahead. What could he be thinking right now? How did he take what his mother said today? I wanted to ask but couldn't. I was too afraid I'd be hurt by his words again. We arrived home without a word. I'm starved. Let's get dinner started, my husband said, as if nothing had happened. He probably planned to end the day without touching on how I felt. I gathered my courage and broke the silence. Hey, Stephen, about what your mom said today, I began. He turned to me with his usual smile. Huh, what about it? She said she wanted grandkids, didn't she? I looked straight at him. Yeah, but since we can't have them, we just have to wait, right? No, that's not what I'm trying to say. You were the one telling me to prioritize my health over work and to consider fertility treatments. I faced the issue head-on and got tested, and there was nothing wrong, I said. My husband's expression began to change. Why didn't you say anything back then? It feels like it's all being blamed on me, but it's not me who's not facing the issue. It's you, isn't it, Stephen? I hadn't meant to say it like that, but once I started, the words just wouldn't stop. All my pent-up frustration exploded. What the heck? Always talking about tests. I already told you that infertility is often a woman's issue, and what Mom said wasn't wrong. It's not my fault. My husband shouted, his face turning red. This wasn't the man I knew. I know it's not your fault, Stephen. It's wrong to blame anyone for infertility. I just want us to move forward. Whether we go through treatment or not, we need to start with the tests, I said. But no matter how much we argued, neither of us would accept the other's point of view, and we remained at a stalemate. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm hungry. I'm going to get something to eat, my husband said, leaving the house. I was left alone in the quiet room. Suddenly, I felt all the strength leave my body and slumped down on the sofa. The image of my husband shouting came back to me. Was it my fault? I didn't mean to make my kind husband angry. I just wanted to be understood. I wanted to work together to plan our future. That's why I wanted the tests. I couldn't stop crying. In the quiet room, only the sound of my sobbing echoed. The next morning, my husband came home silently. You said you were just going out to eat. Where did you spend the night? I was worried, I said, but my husband wouldn't even listen. It doesn't matter, he said, leaving for work. It was our first big fight. I thought these things happened and hoped he'd be in a better mood by the evening. With that hope, I headed off to work. All morning, I could only sigh, but my husband's mood didn't seem to improve. No matter how many days passed, he started leaving the house earlier and coming home later, even on weekends. My husband would leave without saying a word and come back only after I had gone to bed. The times we used to spend together had drastically reduced. It felt like he was avoiding me. I no longer knew how to approach him. Gradually, this silent living became our new normal. I couldn't even remember the times when we used to cherish our moments together. What made us this way? Was it so wrong to suggest that test? Finally, my husband stopped coming home. Lately, you've been away a lot. Where are you staying? I asked, our backs turned to each other. I've been swamped at work and always miss the last train, so I stay at a business hotel near the office, he said, also with his back turned to me. I see, I replied, and then he went off to the bedroom. At some point, my bed had become the couch in the living room. The excuse of work being too late to come home didn't add up. It wasn't even the busy season. My husband was hiding something. A few weeks later, my husband would come home every few days, dump a load of laundry for me to do, then pack his freshly washed clothes into his bag and scurry off. He could at least wash these himself, I muttered to myself as I loaded his laundry into the machine. That's when I heard something drop with a clink. I looked on the floor but saw nothing. I was sure I heard something, so I searched again, more carefully this time. What could have fallen? When I stepped back, I saw something glinting at my feet. Here it is. What's this? I picked up the shimmering object and placed it in my hand. I was at a loss for words. The shiny object in my palm was a small earring. For a moment, my mind went blank, but I wasn't as shocked as I thought I'd be. It was obvious to anyone. When my husband stopped coming home, I had a feeling he was having an affair. Somewhere in my heart, I suspected it, but I was afraid to face the truth and pretended not to care. I just didn't want to hurt myself. But now, faced with reality, I couldn't run anymore. I decided to confront my husband squarely, to grasp the proof of his affair and end our marriage. The next day, I headed to a private investigator. A few days later, my husband's affair was out in the open. The other woman was a new employee at the branch office where he worked. Around the time our marriage started to crack, this young and pretty employee joined the company. With his trademark calm demeanor and kind smile, my husband charmed this female employee. He got close to her by being her mentor at work, and it seems they became involved. It was new to me, but apparently, my husband had made moves on various female employees before, using his position as a superior. He would sweet-talk women, getting close to them. That was his clever tactic. I was just one of the women who had fallen for his scheme. The reason he chose me as a marriage partner was probably because I was convenient for him. Frustration welled up inside me. I decided it was time to end this life. That night, as usual, my husband came home with a heap of laundry. "You might as well have her do your laundry at her place instead of coming all the way home," I said to his back. He stopped and turned around. "What are you talking about?" "I told you it's work," he said, looking at me with a cold stare. "Is this what work is to you? What exactly are you teaching this female employee after hours?" I shoved several photos in front of him. The photos showed the two of them leaving the workplace and entering the apartment where the female employee lived alone. "What's this?" My husband seemed unable to hide his surprise. "Don't play dumb with me. I've dug up everything. And these earrings, weren't they the ones she was looking for? They were caught on your shirt." He froze as he looked at the earrings resting on my palm. "I never thought you were such a womanizer. Let's just end this now. You can date her openly." With that, I handed him the divorce papers. A tense silence filled the air. He stared at the divorce papers, shock written all over his face. Then suddenly, he burst into laughter. "What's this? Sour grapes. Are you jealous because we can't have kids? If you've got time to take pictures like these, why not focus on getting treatment so you can get pregnant?" He had the audacity to say that. Who's really full of sour grapes here? I struggled to contain my rising anger. "Divorce suits me fine. She's pregnant. I've been wanting to cut ties with you ASAP. I'm only thinking about my new family now." To top off his affair, he got her pregnant. What a reckless man. I was at a loss for words, and so we got divorced. It was an anticlimactic end. He took only the bare essentials and left. I also decided to move out of the rental condo we had lived in together. After finishing the lease termination, I was cleaning up the apartment. Everything my husband left behind went straight into trash bags. I didn't have a shred of nostalgia. Just then, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at a time like this? I wondered. I slowly opened the front door. Outside stood a man I had never seen before. His hair was unkempt, and he wore dirty clothes. He greeted me and began to speak, leaving me astonished. 3 years had passed since then. After my divorce, I continued to save diligently and finally reached my savings goal. I had made my dream come true, so I quit my job at the travel agency. One day, I was walking through a famous wine country in the U.S. Wine tasting at vineyards was popular, and new sweet shops and cafes had sprung up, making it a hot spot for the younger crowd. I loved the lively atmosphere so much that I moved nearby. While enjoying a stroll in the lovely weather, I heard a familiar voice calling my name from behind. Who could that be? I wondered. I turned around, and to my surprise, there stood my ex-husband, whom I had parted ways with 3 years ago. I was at a loss for words at the sight that greeted me. "Well, I never expected to run into you here. Are you taking a solo trip to wine country?" "That's pretty sad," my ex-husband said, dressed in work clothes with a scruffy beard and messy hair. I wondered if he had quit his job at the travel agency. I never imagined we'd bump into each other like this, and my pleasant walk was completely ruined. "So I hear you're stuck in a mess because of some failed fertility treatments." He approached me with a sarcastic smile. "It's pathetic, really. All that effort for nothing," he scoffed, looking down on me. It seemed he wanted to flaunt how he was happily living with a new baby from his second marriage, thinking he was on the winning side and mocking me. And whose story might that be? I shot him a cold glare. "I got the scoop from the landlord of the old rental place we lived in. Sounds like you're in debt. After I left, some guy you borrowed money from came to collect, right? You racked up debt for expensive infertility treatments, and in the end, all you got was a pile of bills." The man he mentioned was someone who had come asking about money when I was cleaning out the apartment after our divorce. "Death? You're mistaken about something," I said, "but sometimes it's better to be wrong." I confronted my ex-husband with a truth that visibly clouded his expression. It was a shocking truth for him. 3 years ago, while I was packing up our apartment, a man had come by. That man wasn't a debt collector. He was actually Stephen's father. I had heard that he had run off with another woman years ago, but there he was, looking for Stephen. It seemed he had heard where Stephen's married life was taking place, but by that time, we were already divorced and had canceled the lease on the apartment. "Well, I never expected to run into you here. Are you taking a solo trip to wine country?" "That's pretty sad," my ex-husband said, dressed in work clothes with a scruffy beard and messy hair. I wondered if he had quit his job at the travel agency. I never imagined we'd bump into each other like this, and my pleasant walk was completely ruined. "So I hear you're stuck in a mess because of some failed fertility treatments," he said with a sarcastic smile. "It's pathetic, really. All that effort for nothing," he scoffed, clearly trying to flaunt his new life and mock me. "And whose story might that be?" I shot in a cold glare. "I got the scoop from the landlord of the old rental place we lived in. Sounds like you're in debt. After I left, some guy you borrowed money from came to collect, right? You racked up debt for expensive infertility treatments, and in the end, all you got was a pile of bills." His face fell as he heard this. The man mentioned was actually Stephen's father. I had been told he had run off years ago, but there he was, looking for Stephen. He had come to ask for money, having been abandoned by his mistress and now in financial trouble. When I heard from the landlord about the visitor, I let him in, wanting to avoid any gossip. The landlord, who loved spreading rumors, probably exaggerated the story to Stephen. Frightened by the thought of a debt collector, Stephen took it seriously. I explained to Stephen's father that it was no longer my problem and gave him Stephen's contact information. Hearing this story made Stephen's face turn red with rage. "You gave him my contact info." Ever since then, I've been hounded by dependency inquiries. It's been a nightmare. Amidst the joyful laughter echoing through the wine country, the yelling of my ex-husband rang out, his frustration clear. As my ex-husband's face turned pale, he muttered, "Why do I have to help that guy? He left me and Mom, didn't he? Showing up now and asking for help is just too much." His anger was palpable, and though I could understand his frustration with his father's actions, I had no sympathy to spare for him. "I'm sorry for having such a troublesome father," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. "Even talked about getting divorced because of it." He seemed defeated but added, "For the sake of our child who's on the way, I convinced her to give our marriage another shot. I agreed to help out with her family business, and we settled things amicably." I glanced at the name embroidered on his work clothes. His wife's family ran a cleaning business. He had given up his position as the head of a travel agency branch and was now working as a cleaner. His wife managed all the earnings from the business, leaving him with no money to spend freely. It seemed she had seen through his womanizing ways and wanted him under her parents' watchful eye. I was impressed by her grounded approach, but wondered if there were other reasons behind her strict control. "You still hiding something from me?" I asked, noting his sudden silence and pallor. He replied, "I wonder if the child that's being born to you and your wife is really yours." I touched my slightly swollen belly. "There's nothing wrong with my body," I said. "After the divorce, I've led a life far beyond your imagination. That life has been blissful." I turned to enter the upscale hotel in front of me. "Wait, hear me out," he called after me, trying to hold me back. But I had no obligation to listen to my ex-husband anymore. "We didn't ask for your cleaning services, so please don't come in," I said, dismissing him as I continued on my way. As I stood before my ex-husband, I declared firmly, "I'm the owner of this place." His face turned pale again, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked at me, puzzled. "What do you mean, we? Who are you to this place?" "There's nothing more to discuss," I said, "but I'll leave you with one last thing. I'm the owner of this hotel." My ex-husband's face went completely white. I took a deep breath and continued. "My parents loved this wine country. When I was young, our family often spent time in a small hotel here. That hotel, filled with our memories, had become old and run down, overshadowed by the new larger hotels. It faced financial difficulties and nearly had to shut down. It was my dream to buy that hotel. I saved most of my income from the travel agency and, thanks to living frugally, I reached my savings goal. I bought the hotel with the inheritance from my parents and my own savings, renovated it, and successfully reopened it. From my experience in the travel agency, I created an inn that feels cozy for everyone, young and old, men and women alike. The inn quickly gained a reputation and now ranks among luxury hotels. My net worth has reached $260 million, I continued. The hotel is particularly popular for its food with menus tailored for each guest. Many come back specifically for the meals, which reflect the dedication of the chef. I empathized with the chef's caring heart, and we were drawn to each other. After our marriage, I got pregnant right away. I had no more words for my ex-husband. I turned my back on him, my resolve firm. "I owe you nothing," I said. "Don't ever show up in front of me again." As I walked into the hotel, my ex-husband tried to follow, but he was stopped by the staff and sent outside. His calls faded away and eventually disappeared. Our unexpected reunion had turned into a turning point for both of us. A few weeks later, I received a letter addressed to me, and I was shocked to see the sender, my ex-husband. Everything with him was supposed to be over. Curious and apprehensive, I opened the envelope. The letter, written in his distinctive handwriting, revealed astonishing news. Following our reunion, Stephen, suspecting that the reason for our infertility might lie with him, asked his wife if he was indeed the father of their child. The wife had insisted it was his, but Stephen had long felt that the child was too different from him. After pressing her repeatedly, she finally confessed that the child he thought was his was actually the son of another man, her college boyfriend. After graduating and starting work at a travel agency, she had quickly caught Stephen's fancy, and they began their relationship. Reading the letter from my ex-husband, I found out that his wife's true love was a college boyfriend who had disappeared after learning about her pregnancy. She had married Stephen to secure financial stability, and when his father ran off, it mirrored her own abandonment, intensifying her control over Stephen. She kept him on a tight leash, managing his paycheck and limiting his freedom. Frustrated with this constrictive life, Stephen had sought a divorce. However, his in-laws, supportive of their daughter, refused to agree to it. Eventually, Stephen fled with little money and has been drifting from place to place, struggling to find stable employment due to his unkempt appearance and lack of a suit. His letter expressed regret and a desire to return to his old life, but I was unmoved. His past behavior and the way he had treated me were inexcusable. "I have a bright future ahead with my new husband and our baby on the way." I informed him through a lawyer that any further attempts to contact me would result in a restraining order. I tore up his letter, moving forward with my life. I'm due to give birth next month. While I'm excited about meeting my baby, I can't hide my anxiety about the process. My kind husband is a tremendous support, always encouraging me and helping with the housework on his days off. His presence is a constant comfort as we prepare for this new chapter in our lives. I know everything will be fine. Today is his day off, so we'll walk through wine country and enjoy the changing seasons. Then we'll take a long, deep breath in the park, which is our favorite place to walk. "Oh, the baby just kicked," I said, and my husband quickly put his hand on my belly and started talking softly to our baby. This happiness isn't something we can always count on, so it's very special. With that in mind, I took another deep breath of the fresh air in our lovely town.